This is a Boeing 747. This is a Boeing 747. And this too is also a Boeing 740. Huh? Wait, what is that? It looks like… Is it? Yeah, that too indeed is a Boeing 747. Meet the Boeing 747 SP. The SP stands for Special Performance, or as Qantas Airlines affectionately called the SP, the Stubby Puppy. No, it's not Photoshop. This is a real version of the iconic 747 that is still in use today. So how about you? Have you ever heard about the 747 SP? Well, you're going to hear about it next on Maximus. I have to admit, I completely forgot all about the 747 SP. So when I was reminded of it recently, I thought if I forgot about it, I wonder how many people never even knew it existed. So that's when I got the idea to make this video. One of the reasons for the Boeing SP's near invisibility is that not many books, articles, or even documentaries have ever been written about this completely amazing little pocket rocket. Mostly because it never quite achieved the commercial fame of its movie star Big Sis, the Queen of the Sky. The SP had a limited run, to be sure. Boeing only made 45 between 1975 and 1982, and many wrote off the SP as a failure, but if you ask me, they are just haters, because this little big jumbo really is a special airplane. Since the day the 747 entered service in 1970, the sky was literally the limit for this world-changing new aircraft. The 747 instantly cemented her place in history as the Queen of the Skies, and there was no looking back after that. The 747 opened up international travel to those who previously couldn't afford it. TWA, Pan Am, and others were plucking up 747s as fast as Boeing could make them. Douglas and Lockheed quickly realized there was no chance in besting Boeing in the higher-end jumbo market. However, they quickly got Boeing's attention when they capitalized on an opportunity to exploit a gap in the Boeing production line between the 169-seat 707 and the 380-seat 747. Their solutions publicly launched in 1971 and 1972 in the form of the DC-10 and the L-1011. The medium-range Douglas and Lockheed planes were well received by their airlines, and this prompted Boeing Airlines chief engineer Joe Sutter to take notice. However, it was Pan Am who lit the fire under Boeing to create the 787 SP. Just like Pan Am founder Juan Trippe lit a fire under Boeing in 1965, once again it was Pan Am that sparked the creation of the SP. Pan Am requested a 747 variant capable of carrying a full payload non-stop on its longest route between New York and Tehran. Joined with Pan Am's request was Iran Air. Their joint interest was for a high-capacity airliner capable of covering Pan Am's New York Middle Eastern routes and Iran Air's planned New York-Tehran route. New York-Tehran was the longest non-stop commercial flight in the world for a while. Between fending off competition from the DC-10 and the L-1011, and in an attempt to satisfy Pan Am's request, Boeing concluded that it needed to fill this gap or risk losing that portion of the airliner market entirely. Joe Sutter knew the most economical way to answer this need was to redesign one of Boeing's existing models. It was a practical solution, considering aircraft manufacturers have already been expanding existing aircraft into larger, so-called stretch versions to increase capacity. But the solution Sutter came up with was revolutionary according to many, and downright wacky according to others. Sutter's solution was to take the existing 747 design and chop. Yes, chop off a third of the existing 747, thus reducing its weight and optimizing it for both transcontinental and intercontinental flight. Originally designated the 747 SB for short body, it later was nicknamed Sutter's Balloon by employees after 747 chief engineer Joe Sutter. Boeing later changed the production design to 747 SP for special performance. reflecting the aircraft's greater range and higher cruising speed. Boeing toyed with the idea of a tri-engine design at first, the theory being removing one engine would lead to a 33% automatic reduction in fuel and fuel costs due to the weight reduction. This would have also given the 747 a similar look as the other tri-jets by Douglas and Lockheed. But in the end, cooler heads prevailed, and Boeing scrapped that idea due to the fact that it would have required a major costly redesign of the 747's wing. In September of 1973, and with the blessing of Joe Sutter, the 747 SP was approved by the Boeing board, after which Pan Am almost immediately placed an order for 10 aircraft with options for another 15, with deliveries to begin in 1976. As a result of Pan Am's $200 million cash infusion, the total cost of the deal in 1973 dollars, Boeing officially launched the 747 SP program. The order, including spares, was valued at $280 million, with a per-unit cost of approximately $27 million per aircraft, which was $3 million less than the standard 200B model at the time. Boeing calculated that the market at the time could sustain 214 aircraft. 214 aircraft would mean that at the very least Boeing could break even. The final design was approved, with the SP being 14 meters shorter, almost 46 feet shorter than a full-size 747. The number of doors were reduced to 4 on each side instead of 5. It has a 320-ton maximum takeoff weight, or about 700,000 pounds, and it can fly around 280 passengers in a 3-class configuration over 5,830 nautical miles. That's 10,800 kilometers or 6,800 miles. The SP was much more complex than just a short-bodied 747. The entire fuselage was redesigned specifically for the SP. The tail section saw the most dynamic change, with the entire aft fuselage section being reshaped. To compensate for the shorter fuselage, the vertical stabilizer's height was increased by 5 feet and a double-hinged rudder was added, and both horizontal stabilizers were lengthened by 5 feet. In the end, as a result of all the design changes, the 747 SP fuselage actually weighed 1,500 pounds more than the original 747. While Boeing kept the standard 747 wing on the SP, it was substantially modified to reduce weight. Boeing used lightweight metals and other materials in the wing spars, ribs, skin, and stringers in the wing box and center fuselage sections. Also, to achieve even greater weight reduction of the wings, a much simpler, single-slotted, variable pivot flap system was designed. Overall, Boeing removed 12,000 pounds in weight from the wing structure. The weight reduction efforts paid off. In the end, the 747 SP was 45,000 pounds lighter than the 747 200B model. The first 747 SP rolled out of the factory on May 19, 1975. The first test flight of the SP took place on July 4, 1975. Jack Waddell, who first flew the 747's first test flight in 1969, also flew the first 747 SP's test flight, performing both a stall and max speed .92 run on the 3-hour first flight. The SP is much lighter than the original 747, yet it still carried the same engines as a full-size 747. As a result of this new power-to-weight ratio, the 747 SP surpassed many of its original design parameters and was proving to be quite the jumbo pocket rocket. Many pilots compared the SP's performance to that of a Formula One race car. On November 12, 1975, Boeing decided to show off their new little jumbo pocket rocket and flew the 4th production 747 SP non-stop from New York to Tokyo, almost 7,000 miles. With 200 passengers on board, the SP rocketed to Tokyo in a new world record-setting time of 13 hours and 33 minutes. Not only that, the aircraft still had over 33,000 pounds of fuel remaining. The Boeing 747 SP was granted a supplemental type certificate on February 4, 1976. A month later, on March 5th, the record-setting 747 SP, now with the name Clipper Freedom, was delivered to Pan Am, with commercial service beginning that April. The 747 SP continued its high-performance success as she continued to set and break distance and speed records all around the world. However, even with all the SP's success, The world of aviation economics and technology would soon outpace the speedy little jumbo pocket rocket, essentially numbering the days of the Queen of the Sky's little sister. This was partially the result of the 747-200B catching up with the SP technologically, as well as airline deregulation and rising fuel prices worldwide. However, once again, it would be the tri-engine competition of the DC-10 and the L-1011 that would dog Boeing in its new little wide body. However, it wasn't a matter of performance, it was strictly a matter of economics. Due to the ever-rising fuel prices at the time, it was just cheaper to run 3 engines rather than 4. Although initially expressing interest in 25 aircraft, cash-strapped Pan Am ended up only completing their initial order of 10. However, they later added one final 747 SP, formerly ordered and owned by Braniff. Soon orders for Boeing 747 SP all but dried up. The final regular production 747 SP was delivered to the Iraqi government on August 30th, 1982, and was the 44th 747 SP produced. However, 5 years later, the United Arab Emirates would convince Boeing to restart the SP production line to build one last 747 SP. That aircraft first flew on March 31st, 1987. With its 45th and final SP completed, Boeing finally ended production of the 747 SP for good. As of June 2020, there were 7 Boeing 747 SPs still in active service, with 18 more in storage and 1 preserved. The remaining 19 were mostly scrapped. In 2016, the last 747 SP in commercial service was taken out of service after 40 years by Iran Air. These days, the remaining 747 SPs can be seen streaking across the sky as a charter or party plane. Some have even been converted into flying palaces by the uber-wealthy, while others carry on the noble work of science. It's hard to find any information out there on whether Boeing made a profit, broke even, or even lost money on the SP. But I really don't think Boeing cared. In my opinion, the SP project was the hot rod teenagers create in the garage and bring it out to the racetrack on weekends to race. Yeah, I know, that's way too simplistic an analogy, but I think you get the idea. So what are your thoughts on the 747 SP? Do you remember the SP? Have you flown the SP? Let me know what you think about the pocket rocket down below. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell. And as always, remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you in the air next time. Yeah, this is Maximus.